Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. I'm going to hit record because there's too much good audio in here to miss out on.
I just came in from the gym. I literally just stopped my workout right now on my watch. I sped over here from the gym. I just changed my shirt. I haven't even showered. I am still hot and sweaty under this shirt.
I could kind of smell you from this end of the microphone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hey, when you have guests on your podcast, do you always insult them or is it just me?
It just depends on how I'm feeling that day. So today's
Okay.
Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, episode 4. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and a very special guest tonight, Tony Reyes, out in California. Tony, how you doing?
My man, thank you for having me on one of your podcasts. You're becoming the Ryan Seacrest of podcasts, all the different jobs you have.
I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult, but I'm going to take it as a compliment.
It's a great compliment. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Ryan Seacrest, the greatest host of all time? It's a great compliment.
Well, thank you then. But man, Tony, right, we've gone back and forth for a while. We know each other at first through Bear Performance Nutrition, through the Ambassador Program. We got to meet for the first time ever in person just a few weeks ago, which was incredible. And you've been on my other podcast, the Pursuit Podcast. And so the reason why I wanted to have you on this podcast is because I think your story is super valuable to everybody. And obviously it was a challenging journey that you went on and that you're still on. And so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but why don't I let you introduce yourself to the audience however you see fit?
Yeah. It's always weird to be like, hi, my name's Tony. I used to be morbidly obese. I used to be morbidly obese, and decided to change my life and to change the course of things. And I lost so far about 150 pounds, and have done some physical things that I never thought were possible before, and that's just kind of what my entire purpose is now is just pushing myself and seeing like what I can do now versus what I thought was impossible before. And so yeah, man, thank you again for having me on, and thank you for saying all those nice things about me. I appreciate it.
Of course. I have to balance out some of the insults on this one, but yeah, why don't you take us back to kind of the beginning of your weight loss journey, wherever that is for you. And, I want to ask guests on this show, what is the hardest circumstance that you've ever had to handle, that you've been faced with? And, to me, this from the outside perspective, this weight loss journey is the hardest, but right, I have a very limited view of who you are as a person. So correct me if I'm wrong, and you can take it in whatever direction you like, but tell me about the hardest circumstance that you've ever had to fight through.
I mean, definitely, weight loss has plagued me my whole life. So being obese is, I've been obese since I was a child. I was getting made fun of in third, fourth grade. And so I've always been the big kid in class. So it's definitely, the hardest thing I've been through is weight loss. But within weight loss, I would even to dial it down even more. I would say binge eating has been the hardest thing that I've had to deal with. Because it's, man, it's a hard thing to get past, and I'm still working on getting past it. I'm not, I haven't had a binge meal in 2 years. However, I feel like having a binge meal. I mean, I felt like having one today. You know what I mean? Like literally this morning, I felt like having one. So it's something that's difficult to get through, and it's like constantly in the back of my mind that, oh, you know what? I'm constantly fighting the voices in my head telling me that I deserve it, that I could just have one meal, that it's not going to throw my whole course off if I just have one last big binge meal. It's like, oh, you've already lost so much weight and you've done all these things. Like, let's just have one binge meal. And dude, it's hard, man. And I'm still going through it, 2 years later. It is there. I'm working on things to hopefully get past it, but that is by far the hardest thing that I've had to been through this journey.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I'm assuming people listening to this podcast have that thing in their life. I know I have that thing in my life. For somebody, it might be waking up and snoozing the alarm. For somebody else, it might be getting to the gym or not going to the gym. And we all have those negotiations with ourselves throughout every single day. And I think it could be, we can look from the outside and we see somebody like yourself who's lost 150 plus pounds and you've been on this journey and you're succeeding, but you're still battling every single day. And I would love if you could talk more to that, because I think the internal struggle that the world doesn't get to see is actually one of the most important battles that we all fight throughout life. And so just for you, I mean, tell us, like, what does that feel like? What does it look like? How do you overcome those battles? Is it something that you conquer each day by yourself? Are there other people in your life that help you get through that? What are some strategies? I mean, dive in.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, you're by yourself. There's no, like, you can have the most supportive significant other in the world. You can have a great family around you. And those are all things that are very helpful. But at the end of the day, if you can't kick yourself in your own ass, then you're not going to accomplish anything. My wife has been supportive my whole life. My wife has been supportive of me, our whole relationship together. We've been together for, it'll be 16 years next year. So, and I've only not been obese for 2 of those 16 years. So I've had that support system. My family loves the hell out of me. I've had that support system. It's not until you can, look at yourself in the mirror and get through to yourself that anything is going to change. So those other things are helpful, but at the end of the day, you're doing this alone. And whether you have someone right next to you or not, you're doing it alone. And you're going to need to be able to talk to yourself in a certain way to be able to do that. And so what this journey looks like for me, to get back to your question, is like constantly having those conversations with myself. I am almost at a psychotic level of talking to myself, and I do it out loud. I have to talk to myself out loud so I can hear myself talk. And if you were looking at it from an outside perspective, like if anyone else was around me, they'd be like, this dude's nuts, and he's a little melodramatic, and he's really just going all in. He's looking at himself in the mirror, and he's like pointing at himself, like, it's intense. But that's the only thing that has gotten through to me, is me talking to myself, whether it's positive or it's a harsh conversation with myself, whatever it is. I have to keep up these conversations, because I felt like I lived too long pushing that voice, that subconscious aside, and being like, no, everything's fine. I'm the life of the party. I'm the funny fat guy. Everything's fine. I'm happy. I'm good. But in my true self, my true voice that was trying to get through, that was in pain, that was sad and angry and disappointed in myself and disgusted with where I let myself get to, that guy was muted. That guy had been silenced for so long. So now I have to literally talk to myself to make that work. And, online, I try to present as much of a realistic journey as possible. I tell people when I've gained weight. I put my stuff on blast. I don't really like a lot of the fitness industry where, they just like, I started losing weight and then 35 days later, I looked like this, and I did it all through eating nothing but bone broth and meat. And it's like, okay, that doesn't seem like you're going to be able to do that forever. But, I've been as transparent as possible. And so I do feel like that's been a huge help to me, because not only am I talking to myself, I'm putting myself out there and being vulnerable and being super honest online. And it is hard, but it has been very, very helpful. So, yeah, man, I think all those things combined has really helped get me through through the up and down battles every day.
Yeah.
Struggling with weight loss and binge eating.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many questions, and you actually kind of answered one before I even asked it. But I was going to ask if you think you would be at the same point in your weight loss journey without social media. How would you
No,
answer? Yeah.
no, not at all. I mean, if there was no so like if there was no social media, and I was just, or at least like none of my own, and I was just consuming content, maybe I'd have a desire to do it. But the fire wasn't lit under me until I posted a video holding my son, standing next to my wife, and I said, today is day one of 100 days, and I'm going to lose 50 pounds by my son's first birthday. Putting something out there like that, it puts it on you until you make it public, until you put it out there. There's there's nothing really holding yourself to it. And for someone like me, and that's not going to be the case for everybody, but for someone like me, until I force myself to do something like that, like I literally put my word on the line. There was nothing that was holding me to it. There's no deadline. There was no like whatever. And that's how I made it through, 32 years of my life being that way and living that way and living that unhealthy lifestyle. That because I had no pressure to do it otherwise, And so until I put it out there publicly, that was a complete game changer for me, for sure. So yeah, I don't think I would be where I'm at now without doing that publicly and kind of holding myself accountable.
It makes sense to me. I played a little bit of college football, and one of the things
I
that
didn't know that. What position were you in?
well, I played a little bit of safety in college, and I enjoyed my time there. But one of the biggest lessons that I took away from football, especially when it stopped, was that there was nobody holding me accountable anymore. And when you play football, there's, depending on the level of football, you watch film. And some teams you watch film on your games, and some teams you'll also watch your practice film. And so when I was at Bucknell playing football, we would rewatch every single practice. And when you're watching film, your mistakes are up on a big screen for everybody to see, your coaches, your teammates, and it's coming. You made the mistake, and you get put on blast. And sometimes that sucks. But what I realized was that watching film and having my play put up for everybody to see, it made me more accountable. It forced me to take ownership. I was a better football player because of it. I was a better teammate because of it. And I was a better person because of it. And I thought when I left football, how do I hold myself accountable to that same level now that I don't have anybody who's watching me play every single play of every single day? And for me, social media has been kind of like putting my life on film. And it sounds like the same for you.
Absolutely.
And my question, Tony, is what was the turning point? What made you put that out there? Because I'm sure you had thought about that plenty of times. What made you pull the trigger that time?
You know what, man? Like, it's weird. I've been trying to lose weight since I can remember, like in high school or whatever. Like, even as a kid, I remember my dad trying to convince me to lose weight by saying like, hey, if you lose 20 pounds, I'll buy you a motorcycle. I really wanted, like, we lived out in the desert and I wanted a motorcycle to ride through the desert. And obviously did not lose the weight, did not get the motorcycle, but it was like things like that. I remember vividly. I think I was in like 4th or 5th grade at that point, wearing the same size pants as my dad, like not good, So nothing really stuck until I had my son, and he was, once he was born, and you're in charge of this little life, and you're like, you think. I had this deep fear of my son being, in elementary school or something, and me going to pick him up and him getting made fun of because his dad was the fat dad, and I remember thinking that constantly. It was just such a big fear. And then, secondly, was just not being around. I was pre-diabetic. I had really bad sleep apnea. High blood pressure. My liver wasn't good. I had gout like 3 times. Like, it was just, I was very unhealthy. And so the chances of me dying early were extremely high. Heart disease runs in my family. So, there's just a lot on the line, basically. And so I knew I needed to make a change, but nothing really happened until I heard David Goggins on a podcast. And I was like, this dude sounds insane. Like, he sounds like a crazy person. Like, he doesn't seem real. And he's talking about his book. And so I was like, all right, I got to read this book. And I read Can't Hurt Me. And it absolutely, it just changed my whole perspective on boundaries, on human potential, on my own potential, on the limits that I was placing on myself. Like, it sounds crazy. And, just so, I don't know. It just sounds so weird to me to change your entire life because of one book. But his book really did do that for me. It was at least the catalyst. There was a lot of things that helped me early on and helped motivate me. But his book initially is what sparked this whole thing. And, so reading that, and then when I was done with that, I was like, I got to make a change. And I Googled how many days until July 28th. And it was my son's birthday. And I had it was 103 days. And I was like, okay. I texted my wife and I said, hey, I think I'm going to start a weight loss journey in 3 days. I'm going to I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And, I was texting her, basically giving her my accountability of what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, when I was going to do it. And by the time I got home, she had taken my text and written it out in, man, I did not anticipate to get emotional about that. She had written it out on cue cards for me, and she had put it on a poster board. And she posted it on a poster board, and we hung it in our bedroom. And that is literally what I woke up to every single day. Was what my promise to myself was. And it's so weird. I told that story a lot. This is the first, I don't know why I'm getting emotional about it, but it's, and that's one of those things where it's like, yes, I did the work, and yes, you are alone in this journey, but that was extremely helpful. That was extremely helpful to have someone who supported me and who most importantly believed that I could do it. Because, not a lot of people, would have believed in me at that time. For sure. If they had a wager a bet, I don't think many people are reaching for their wallets. Okay. Because I had tried and failed so many times to lose weight before that. So it was just really, really meaningful. And yeah, man, that's kind of the start of all of it.
Yeah. Wow. That's so beautiful. I actually, before you even started getting a little emotional, when you said that your wife took the initiative to do that for you before you even got home that same day, it sounds like I started getting a little emotional. And I'm a softie on the inside, as
oh, dude, me
you
too.
are, right?
Me too.
And I was like, that is so beautiful how she believed in you so much at that moment in time. And it's a small gesture, right? But it was so powerful and something that obviously still holds a significant place in your heart. So,
oh yeah, I still have the cue cards. I still have them.
That's cool. Are they hanging up somewhere, or do you just have them?
No, I have them saved. Now, once I got past my 100 days, it was like, okay, this is like a built-in thing. Like I've got this. And then we moved. So I put them in my, I have this little fire safe with all our important documents, and they're in there. Cause I'm like, if the house goes down, these cue cards are being saved. And they're right next to our passports, birth certificates, cue cards.
That's amazing. Oh man. So, right. You're on this journey. You're still on this journey. And is there an end goal for you on this journey, or is the journey in itself the end goal?
The end goal for me is, being like the most active, healthy 90-year-old you've ever seen. That's like, there's no, I don't care. Obviously I have goals to do, I want to do a triathlon. I want to do a bunch of marathons. I want to do an Ironman. Ironman's probably the biggest goal that I have right now, but like the end goal is to live as long and most importantly, as healthily as I can, because you know, you just see your grandparents go through certain things, and you see other family members go through certain things. And if you have different diseases that run in your family, which mine have, plenty of, or won the lottery of deadly diseases that run in our family line. So, I think with all those things pitted up against me, I just have to do my best to try to combat that and live as healthy as I can. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that are out of my control, but I'm going to live the best life that I can until that day.
Yeah. And, when I hear you talk, it sounds like you're extremely proud of where you've come from, but not satisfied with where you're at. And on that journey, right, you mentioned a couple of really hard things in there. And I know, some of the physical feats you've already done, but if you had to answer the question, what is the hardest thing that you've intentionally put yourself through outside of the weight loss? Maybe it's a physical endeavor, maybe it's a professional endeavor, something else. What would you say that is?
I think the thing that anyone who's ever heard my story before would expect me to say the marathon. I ran a marathon. That was my big 2020 goal, and I did a whole long documentary about it. It's on YouTube. That to me, honestly, was not the hardest physical thing that I've had to do. I mean, it was hard. Don't get me wrong, but before I started that marathon, I knew I was going to finish the marathon. You know what I mean? So it was not a surprise to me when I crossed that finish line. I was like, yeah, I expected this. I'm sure it was a surprise to a lot of other people, but not to me. To me, I was so determined. I was so focused that I did not care what happened during that race. I was going to finish that race. So that wasn't honestly the hardest thing for me. The hardest thing for me was the first time I ever ran 6 miles, which is a lot less than a marathon, but I didn't. It was a day where it was supposed to be my big 6 mile run. It was one of my race days. Obviously, during 2020 with COVID, every race got canceled, and so this was supposed to be my big 6 mile race. It was my 10K race that I had signed up for. It got canceled, and so I decided to run it on my own on the day that I was going to do it. Because I just had like this no excuses mentality, but I was really nervous for it because I never ever ran that far in my life. And I just thought, like, this is going to be, I don't even know if I can finish it. And it was a day where it just happened to be pouring rain outside. It was freezing cold, and I had to work that day. And so I didn't start my run until like 6 o'clock at night. And there was just so many uncertainties about doing this run. And so when I finished that run and I did it unbroken, even in the pouring rain, I mean, I was soaking wet. Like I might as well have jumped into the ocean. Like I was so wet and cold. But by the end of it, I was like, I had this like renewed belief in myself. I was just so like, that's probably my proudest moment. I'm probably more proud about finishing that 6 miles than I am the marathon, because I didn't think I could do it. And I was completely alone. There was nobody else out there because it was late, dark, and raining. And I'm the only idiot out there running. And so I didn't think I could do it. And when I did finish it, and especially doing it unbroken, it was just super, super meaningful to me. And that helped me, push me through the rest of the year training up for that marathon. So that was probably one of the hardest things that I got through.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that about you. And I love quotes. I'm not sure if you know that about me. My audience does. But John Wooden once said, be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your reputation is what people think you are, while your character is what you really are. True character happens when nobody is watching. And it's interesting because I hear that story and I imagine you out there in the pouring rain. It's getting dark. You're by yourself. You're cold. You're not sure if you're going to finish. And it's you with yourself running step after step until you finish the 6 miles. And so this podcast is obviously called the Project Endure podcast. And I want to ask you about endurance and what the word and concept of endurance means to you. Obviously, you're running, you're thinking about triathlons, but when you think of endurance, what does that mean to you?
To me, it's just, you know, it's, I think the word is even, it goes beyond just fitness in general. Like there's so much more that you have to have endurance for, you know, for relationships, for parenting, for your professional career in a job, whatever it is, you have to have endurance. And what that means to me is just being able to put your head down and push through and finish whatever it is that you started, despite whatever comes up, despite your, you know, your bad cardio, despite arguments that you have, you know, little arguments you have with your spouse, despite your rude boss that doesn't take into account your family life balance, like all these different things that you have to work against. And despite of, if you can finish the job, even with all those things as challenges and overcome all those obstacles, that means to me that you have endurance. Now, you might not be able to, you know, run 60 minutes at a 7:30 pace like you can, Joe, but I would argue that, you know, even if you are at a 18-minute per mile pace and you hold that and you finish however many miles you set out to do, you finish that, you have endurance. That to me is endurance, is just being able to push through and grit it out.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And another great quote is from James Watkins, who said, "A river cuts through rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence." And I think when I think of endurance, I think of moving in a similar direction over a long period of time and carving out that rock. And it doesn't matter how slow or how fast you're going, but I think what matters is that you don't stop and that you continue to get back up when you fall and you continue to put one foot in front of the other. And I would imagine that for you, like everybody else, that there are days, weeks, months where things aren't going your way, where injuries pop up, where self-doubt creeps in, where you just fall off the wagon for whatever reason, and you have to get back up and you have to get back on and move forward. And so for you, like as those moments happen on the journey of endurance, what have been some of the strategies or kind of takeaways you've had as like what keeps you going forward when things get really hard and don't go your way?
So there's this thing that is it's basically a story that's been told a bunch of times. I mean, David Goggins talks about it in his book, but a lot of people talk about it. It's not like a new concept. And it's this idea of, on the day that you die, this person walks out. You already know what it is. But,
go ahead. It's the
on the day that you die, the best version of yourself walks out, and you meet that best version of yourself, and who you could have become. Your absolute full potential self comes out to meet you. And my whole goal is just being as close to that guy as I can get. I'll never get there. You know, I don't know that I'll ever reach maximum potential, you know, 100% efficiency with myself. I don't think I'll get there, but that is the goal. That's what I'm reaching for. Because if I, on my death day, when I meet my highest, you know, I don't want him to be a stranger. I don't want me to be completely, you know, opposite or that far away of what that guy is. And so that is honestly what drives me. And, you know, I think everyone always goes to like, oh, well, I want to be a good role model for my kids. Like, of course, like that goes without saying, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't even, that's a given. Like everything I do, my kids are at the forefront of my mind. They're the reason that I do anything. But honestly, when you are gritting something out like this, you need more than that. You need to dig deep into something personal for you, you know, because like your kids are going to be proud of you, whether I finished the marathon or not. Ryder would have been proud of me if I just tried, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you need more than just your kids to like get you through something. And so it's like, yes, that love that you have for your kids is going to help. But again, you need to make it personal. You need to pull into yourself. And so for me, that is something that always keeps me going, is making it personal and knowing that for me in my life and my time on this earth, I want to be going towards the best version of myself. And that's what has worked for me. Some days are harder than others to hype myself up to that. Like, come on, you're going for the best version of yourself, right? And you're like, shut up, I don't care. I just want a day. I don't care. Who cares? Jeez, one day is not going to ruin the best version of myself. But it's a process, and so it doesn't always come that easy. But most days, that's what gets me through.
Yeah, that's great. And there's another spin on that David Goggins story, or at least the one that he told, where there's this guy and he's in the army and he has the chance to become a general. And he doesn't take it because he doesn't think he could do a good job. And so he lives the rest of his life, after making that decision. He passes away. He gets to the gates of heaven, and an angel appears and says, all right, do you want to know anything about your life? And he says, yeah, I'm curious, who was the best general to ever live? And the angel looks at him and says, it was you. And he says, no, it wasn't me. I wasn't a general. And the angel says, it was supposed to be you. And I don't know, I get the chills every time I think about that concept that you spoke about, because, I think too many people go to the grave, and honestly, I don't know, because I'm not that person, not those people, but with dreams that were never realized, or books that were never written, or songs that were never sung, or I'm quoting Les Brown as I speak here. These aren't my words, but all because somebody was either too afraid to start or not willing to keep with it. Yeah. And I think that's a really, really sad thing. So 100% what you said resonates with me, Tony. And one of the other things that I really love about what you said is that you have to dig deep. And to me, it's almost like I have this other person inside of me. And when things get hard, you meet that other person. And that other person could do just a little bit more. They could give just a little bit more. They could be just a little bit more. And you get that decision. Do you want to tap into that other person and just go one more, to put it in the words of Nick Bare? And the more you tap into that other person deep down inside, the more you become that other person. And that other person is going to be the best father, the best husband, the best friend, the best whatever you want to name it. And I think that's such a powerful concept. And so, for you, as you continue moving forward through this journey, do you have reminders for yourself, whether they're physical reminders, mental reminders, maybe a motto, a tattoo, a poster? Do you place things in your environment to remind you of that other person?
Dude, I'm so cheesy. I got that stuff everywhere.
Tell me about it.
It helps, man. One of my favorite quotes is "Comfort is a slow death," and that is, I love that quote. And so I have a banner of that in my office that I always it's something that I go back to a lot, because it's easy to get comfortable, especially this day and age. You get a job, your salary, and you work 9 to 5, and then it is what it is. You come home, you eat dinner, you go to bed, wake up, you do the same thing, and you just get comfortable. And then, 4 years later, you're 406 pounds and you have a kid on the way, and you're like, how did I get here? Like, it's crazy. So, comfort is a slow death is a great quote, and it's probably my favorite quote of all time. I pull a lot of strength from the word relentless. That is kind of like my thing. I love that word. I have loved that word since I was a kid, watching Robin Big, an old MTV show with Rob Dyrdek. He had relentless tattooed on his arm. And I was like, he had this massive tattoo. It was like massive, relentless on his forearm. And so, hearing him talk about it and looking up the definition, and I was just like, that's a cool word. That's a powerful word. And never really did anything with it. And then it was, during this weight loss journey, found that word again. And, like it's a treasure or something. I found it. I discovered the word relentless. But that is when it actually carried so much more meaning for me, is when I needed it. I needed that that relentlessness. And so if on like almost every post, I would post, I am relentless. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people thought that I believed I was relentless, but I've always looked at Instagram and YouTube or whatever as my own accountability tool, like we were talking earlier. And if people get inspiration from that, that is great. That is awesome. But I am using that as the first thing is as my own accountability tool. And so when I post, I am relentless, I am posting that for myself to tell myself that. I don't believe that every day. You know what I mean? Like, when Muhammad Ali would say, I'm the greatest, he didn't believe he was the greatest all the time. He was talking himself into that because he was so scared. And he talks about that a lot. And I also pull a lot of inspiration from Muhammad Ali, but he, in that same vein, like saying I am relentless and I have a relentless tattoo on my arm now. It's about an eighth of the size as Rob Dyrdek's, but it's on my arm. And, I look at that. I have relentless in my home gym. I have, 406 painted in my home gym as a reminder. I will soon have a 406 in Roman numerals tattooed on my arm as a reminder. But, all these little things are just to help me keep me on track, especially when I'm having those desires to have a binge meal, especially when I'm having those desires to like hit that snooze button, kind of, slack off or get comfortable, which, I'm making a whole video about this soon for my YouTube channel, which is talking about, getting soft and just being, being complacent and being comfortable, and, different things that have happened to me this year, allowing those to take away some of that relentlessness, allowing those to take away some of that fire that I had. So having these reminders around everywhere really do help. And it wasn't until like that BPN ambassador weekend that we just had that I was able to snap out of it and really like see what everyone else was doing and see all the the fire that everyone was bringing to their own lives. And I was like, man, I gotta snap out of this. And so since then I have just been on a tear. I've just been on a tear. I just feel like the old me. I feel rejuvenated and renewed, and like, man, it is so helpful for that. That's incredible. That's another thing, like having that support system. Like, yes, I'm here grinding it out by myself for sure. However, that, all the BPN ambassadors and that BPM family helps me so much.
Yeah. And, I relate 100%. I was fired up leaving that weekend. And I think more so, to be completely honest, sitting here, hearing you tell me that you were just in a rut before that. First of all, I didn't realize that. And second of all, being able to have a conversation with somebody who you admire, who you care about, who you aspire to be like in many ways, which all of those things are true about how I see you, Tony. And to know that you're not feeling it sometimes and you still continue to show up, like that fires me up. And I think that's what the world needs more of, honestly, is an authentic storytelling from the heart. And that's exactly what you do. And I absolutely love that. And, I sense this, like, and I don't know how you're going to take this question, so please take it however you want, but I sense like a little bit of Buddha in you. Do you have like any spirituality that helps you in this journey on doing hard things?
Is this a video podcast?
It's not, but describe what you got going on here.
I'm turning my camera, and up on the wall is a massive wooden carved.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's usually just out of frame, but yeah. So I have I have the Buddha on the wall. I've got the Om symbol on my arm. I practice meditation, but as far as spirituality goes, I don't follow any religion. I'm not. I was raised as Catholic, so naturally just have just a natural sense of guilt, just gripping me every day, just that good old fashioned thick Catholic guilt. So yeah, I was raised Catholic, and just kind of I don't not had a falling out of the church. I just didn't really, I just stopped making sense to me at a certain point in my life, and then just kind of fell off of it. And so, no, I don't think, like I said, I don't believe any certain type of religion, but as far as spirituality goes, there is absolutely something else going on. Like there is so much energy in a human being, and you can sense things in people. And so whatever that is, whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it Buddha or God or whoever, you know what I mean? I don't care. You do you. I know there's some type of energy going on, and I know that there's something else. I believe there's something else after what we're currently going through. We're not just a sack of meat and bones. There's this extra something, that extra energy within us that has to go somewhere. I don't know where that is. Maybe it's these big pearly gates and there's these dudes floating around with wings and white robes. Maybe. I don't know. I don't, maybe not. But, I do think that there's some type of energy that gets passed on and that moves through all of us. And so that energy is like what I feel like the most connected to when I am, deep in that meditation, and I'm thinking about, my best friends that have passed, or my grandma that has passed. I know that energy is somewhere. You know what I mean? Like I was in the room when my grandma died, and I felt the difference in the room, before and after. And so I think, there's something to it. There's something more. And I think that's a powerful thing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. And I think in terms of energy and spirituality, and just the fact that even if, everybody has a different viewpoint on those subjects, that we could all agree that life is bigger than just us. And I think one of the beautiful things about what you're doing, sharing your story and your life through social media and in person with people, what I strive to do and what so many other people who are listening to this podcast are trying to do, is make a positive impact with their lives. And I think, the sheer fact that we are challenging ourselves, pushing ourselves, doing hard things, doing things that are uncomfortable, maybe, that's not only making us a better person, helping us become more relentless, more resilient, but it is without a doubt inspiring and impacting people that we might never know it's touched. And I think that's one of the really important things for me when it comes to endurance. It's that when I feel like quitting, I know that if I stop, it's going to impact the people around me, maybe not immediately and maybe not in a way that I could see it, but even if it just changes the person that I am, and in your words, I become a little bit more soft, that is going to impact every single person that I interact with. And that's one of the things that keeps me going. And I see you nodding your head, and I'm curious, just, with your son and with a child on the way and just under 2 months here, how that plays into kind of your sense of a bigger picture.
Yeah, man. Going back to it, it's like, I wouldn't say I'm Buddhist, but I do love a lot of those philosophies. And so one of those philosophies is how that all of us are connected in a certain way. And whether like it's a direct connection or an indirect connection, everything that you do affects so many different people, like you were just talking about. And so it's like, everything that I'm doing right now is going to affect my great grandchildren in some way or another, and I just think about my great grandparents, and like just my grandparents, and the sacrifices they had to make, literally hiding in a truck to come to the United States illegally, and like that whole life and what that's like. The sacrifices they made have made my life so much easier than even someone as closely related to me as my cousin. My cousin has had a different life than me because of just, different circumstances. And so I feel like I'm very grateful for that. And all I can do is try to lead the most fulfilling life for myself, which includes being a positive impact with as many people as possible. Because like, whether that comes back to me or not, I just feel I'm always happier when I'm trying to be as positive as possible. And so there's this quote that, you can light 1,000 candles with the flame from one match, and it's not going to take away that flame from that original match. And so I think, like, why not be as positive as you can to every person that you interact with? Now, sometimes when I'm driving down the freeway, that doesn't always apply. Okay. If I'm driving down the freeway and you cut me off, the Buddha goes out the window, and I, have a really hard time with that. But it's in the majority of my days, if I'm being positive and I'm trying to provide for my son and showing him that, and my soon-to-be daughter, showing them what an adult can be like. An adult can still be positive. An adult can still be goofy and make fun of themselves and be sensitive. And that, men can cry, which is something that I had to learn on my own, generationally. It's just not what was taught. And so I feel like every generation of us as a people is slowly just becoming better overall. And so, and that's what I'm trying to do for my son. And that's hopefully what he will see, he will appreciate one day. And then he will also do for his children, and my daughter will do for her children. And so, yeah, man, it's crazy to think about that. But I think our generation of kids and grandchildren will be so much more connected to who we are now, because we're documenting so much more than anyone else ever. Like, I mean, we go back to the hieroglyphs, like they were documenting stuff. We're documenting so much more every single second. It's just crazy. And so, I mean, my grandkids will be able to go back and see this podcast. They'll be able to go back and see my entire weight loss journey and me just spouting on and on about how fat I was.
Tony Jr., if you're listening to this.
Yeah, man. It's just crazy. So we're more connected now than we've ever been as a people. And so I think, because of that, we have to try to be as positive as we can be as a people, because holy shit, is there a lot of negativity. So it's just like, you gotta try to do your best. Again, sometimes on the freeway, sometimes on the freeway, it gets a little squirrely, but most of the time, that's what I'm striving for.
I love it. And, I really want to be respectful of your time. And so what I would love to do, Tony, is I want to kind of just sum it up as I heard it. And some of the big takeaways that honestly I had from this conversation so far. I'm honestly very fired up right now. I'm probably not going to be able to sleep tonight. It's almost my bedtime, which is 7:30 p.m. Eastern. But, one of the things that I heard over and over in your story is, from the very beginning, you tried to do what you were doing. You tried to lose the weight over and over and over again and weren't successful, but you didn't stop. And there was this point where it happened and things started to turn in your favor. And you had support from your wife and from, I'm assuming, other people in your circle. But even though you had that support, at the end of the day, it was you versus you. And you had to be able to pick yourself up out of the hole when it was a bad day, keep yourself going on the good days, and constantly talk to yourself throughout that journey. And some of the hardest moments for you are moments that nobody else has seen, whether it was that 6-mile run in the rain, whether it's the conversations you're having, driving home from the gym potentially about whether or not you're going to reward yourself with a big meal. And who knows, but I think the biggest takeaway for me from all of this was honestly that quote you gave me. And that quote might be in my top 2 or 3. I'd never heard that before.
Really?
No, man.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited.
Do you know who said that?
I actually don't. I think it's just one of those things, like no one credits anybody. So you know what? It's actually, I said it.
Comfort is a slow death. Tony Reyes. But you know what, man, like I think, and that's really the spirit of this podcast of Project Endure, is that comfort truly is a slow death. And I just didn't have the words for it, but we need to continually seek discomfort and do hard things and push ourselves to become the best version of ourselves, which is what you're striving for, what I'm striving for. And someday when life is over, whether we're somewhere up in the white clouds, somewhere completely different, and we don't know what's going on, we meet the best version of ourselves. We want to be that best version of ourselves. And I think that's something that is so great to strive for so many people. And hopefully that imagery resonated with the people listening. Now, aside from the road rage, which I did not know about you, I want to ask the final question, right? And so there are people listening.
I've gotten so much better. I will say I've gotten so much better. I have to interject. I've gotten so much better. Used to be when I was traveling all the time and driving to LA, I'd get nutty. However, I've gotten better where I'm just like, you know what? It's all good. It's not worth it. You just go on ahead. I always think the trick of it now, this is the trick to get past road rage. The trick now is as soon as you see someone doing something crazy, you think, hey, maybe he's got to poop. You know, maybe he's got to poop and he's just got to get home immediately. And that's why he cut me off. And it's all good because I've been there. Who hasn't been there? You know, so that's the trick to get past road rage.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, so off of that, right, I want to ask you, right, there's somebody listening to this podcast who is potentially going through something really, really hard, whether that is something they've put themselves through intentionally. Maybe they're preparing for a race, they're doing something hard on purpose, or life has just handed them a really, really bad hand. And they're facing some tough circumstances that they didn't ask for. You're speaking to that one person. What do you want to say to that person who is really just in the thick of it right now?
You know, you just have to remember that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how deep down you are in depression or in the suck of whatever activity you're going through, if you just keep putting one foot in front of another, you can keep digging yourself out of that hole. There's no hole that is unsurmountable. There's not there's so many stories of people that have come back from the depths of hell. I mean, there's so many stories out there of that, and you're no different, and you can do it. It's going to take a long time, and that's what you just have to accept. There is no 30-day fix to any serious problem in your life. You didn't get there in 30 days. You're not going to fix it in 30 days. And you just have to, as soon as you accept that and just put your head down and keep pushing forward, then it becomes easier, honestly. As soon as you just accept that you're about to go through hell and continue going through hell until eventually it becomes a little less hellish. And then maybe one day, years from now, it's all better. Then it becomes easier because you've given up this false, sense of everything should be rainbows and everything's going to be easy in 30 days. It's not. And so that once I gave that up and just knew deep down that this was going to hurt and suck more than anything I had done before, everything became easier. And so I that's what I would say, just, be relentless and just keep going.
Wow. Tony, I was going to let you finish with that question, but I have to add something in here because it just is too close to what you said not to share. Have you ever heard the story about cows in Buffalo?
No.
Okay. So, all right. Colorado is one of the few places in the world where cows and buffalo live in close proximity. And Colorado is a relatively flat state, but there's mountain range that goes through the middle. And so storms tend to form over the mountain range and then they roll over the flat plains. And when cows see a storm coming from the mountains, they turn away from the storm and they run in the opposite direction. And what happens is the storm catches up to the cows, and then the cows eventually are still running in the same direction as the storm. And so they're in the storm for a longer period of time. The buffalo, on the other hand, when they see the storm approaching, they turn, face the storm, and run directly into it. And because they're moving in an opposite direction, they actually get through the storm quicker. And it's so counterintuitive, but it's exactly what you just said. You are the Buffalo, Tony Reyes, the Buffalo.
Bro, why did I just got home from the gym right before we started this podcast, and I am ready to go back. Oh my God, that fired me up. I had no idea of that.
Now
I'm
you
a
know,
Buffalo
man.
now, and now I need a Buffalo tattoo. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, hey, let's do this to finish things off. One of the most inspiring videos I've ever watched was your documentation of your journey from weight loss to marathon. And so I want people to find your YouTube channel. I want people to follow you. Why don't you just tell them where to find everything about you?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that so much. Yeah. So the documentary is called weight loss documentary, obese to marathon is the name of it, obese to marathon. And you can find that on my YouTube channel at Focus Fight Finish. You could follow me on Instagram. I post there quite a bit. It used to be every day, but that got to be a little crazy. During the 100 days, I did post every single day because it was like part of the whole journey. Then I was like, okay, I'm like getting burnt out of just posting, this basically the same video every day. I just worked out again. day 76. I was, sweaty. But I do post there a lot. Focus Fight Finish on Instagram. And if you have any, I never try to say that I'm an expert at weight loss. I'm not. I am not a nutritionist, a dietitian. I'm not a trainer. I'm not certified in anything. However, if you do have a question or you just need somebody to vent to, I answer every DM that I get, and I would be happy to chat with you about your weight loss journey, about mindset, about, focus, relentlessness, about, how comfort is a slow death, all those things I would be happy to talk to you about. So shoot me a DM on Instagram and go check out the Obese to Marathon documentary. It would mean a lot to me.
Awesome. Well, I will link all of that in the description to make it easy on the people. And Tony, just really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for your time and for your story. And, I can't wait till we do this again soon.
Dude, you know what? Thank you so much. And may I just say, it's such a good thing that you have, 17 podcasts because you're so good at it. You're so good at it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Well, when number 18 comes out, you're going to be the first guest. I promise you that.
Yes, I knew it. Thank you. That's all I wanted.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. Oh, and one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.